All right, so we're on. So this is the June 5th laser SIG. And we're going to have, Doug's going to talk about his diode laser hacks. And as soon as John Anderson shows up, he's going to talk about his big blue laser, from unboxing it to not being able to make the lines work right. And then I'm going to go over some of the new features of Lightburn 9.13. If you haven't upgraded to 9.13, do it, because 9.12 gave you those features with bugs. So 9.13 literally came out 6 hours after 9.12. So upgrade your Lightburn. So I still don't.
You know, it's funny, Alan. I was wondering how I managed to miss 2 full upgrades, but you just explained it. They were only 6 hours apart.
Yeah. Well, that's what, because I was looking, mine was like 9.11. It's like, and it says there's an upgrade available, and I punched it and it went to 9.13. It's like, well, where are those 12? And then when Randy and I were starting to look at what the upgrades were, all the upgrades are listed in 9.12. And then when you finally get down to the little blurb about 13, it says, oh, it fixes, you know, it's like 6 or 7 bug fixes.
Yeah, okay, got it.
And I think the bug fixes were for the node editing piece. I don't remember exactly, but it sounded like that. All right, so I'm going to, because Travis is going to teach me how to do this. How do I lock on Doug here?
So what you do is you look at his picture, and there's a little ellipse in the upper right-hand corner, and you choose Spotlight.
Okay, there's no.
And John just also said he's doing it right now.
Oh, okay. Well, let's. We'll go ahead and start with Doug here.
Okay.
But first, I got to find Spotlight video. There you go. You're on, Doug.
Ta-da!
Okay. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and swap cameras here. So I'm going to go away just for a second. And then I'm going to, let's see if this works. Did it work? Yes, it did. Okay.
Yep.
So I've done a few things to my Ortur laser cutter. The things I did, I'll mention them just off the bat. I got 6 things that I have listed here. The fan that blows down on the, and here I can even do some here. So you might get dizzy. The fan that blows down, this gap right here was like almost half of what this one is. Really starving the fan of air. And so I fixed that. Also, I didn't like the fan changing speed as you increase power, or even as you dither and stuff, it would turn on and off and vary speed. Years ago, I always saw that CPU fans and stuff would last longer if you just left them full power. So I went ahead and fixed that.
Fixed it how, Doug? Sorry, what did you do?
I'm going to get through all that.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just going to go over the few things that I did.
Got it.
Fan air was not traveling down through this heatsink. You would basically, you see the fan up there, air would just come in and come right out here instead of traveling all the way down. So I fixed that. I also lowered my whole laser because I wanted to etch right on the surface that the laser is sitting on. And then I did a laser extension. You can see a version of it right here sticking out. And then I swapped my panels. I did not like the wires and the buttons in the back of the laser. Matter of fact, when I first got it, I originally had it backwards because I thought the wires and cables and buttons were supposed to be in the front. So I swapped those around. So those are the things that I'm going to go over. So fan spacing. Let's see if we can go here. what I ended up doing was I took out the short spacer that was down here, 3D printed spacer, and another one here, and basically evened it out. They ended up doing this eventually.
Oh,
They ended up doing that, or at least it's done on this one.
and yet, Doug, isn't that the goal of good hacks?
Yep.
Yep.
Especially, it's great when they feed back and they get to the manufacturer and they upgrade stuff.
Yeah.
So the fan. So on this one, you can see the, let's see where the fan is. Okay, so here's the fan wires right here. They come up, red wire and black wire come right to the side here. Well, I disconnected that red wire. And if you go over here to where power comes in, 12 volts comes in. And 12 volts comes into here and only turns on when your laser's on. So what I did was I moved the, let's see if we can get over here. I moved the cable and just soldered it to the pin underneath. I just unsoldered it from over here. I should get a pointer.
And so whenever the laser is on, the fan is on.
The fan, and it's on full speed.
Got it.
Doesn't vary, yep. So you get good airflow through there. So then the other thing that I don't like is all the smoke blowing, coming up on your lens. So I thought, how about shielding, putting some shields on here that close that up so that the air goes all the way down to the bottom on both sides of the heat sink. And then at the bottom, let me see if I can move this out. At the bottom, this 3D printed thing, I put some little deflectors. So the air essentially comes down and then deflects towards the lens. So that's fresh air coming from the top.
Yeah.
And it does pretty good under normal circumstances. When I was doing I've done some tiles, and lots of little dust flies around, and I ended up with, there's dust up here. So it ended up even making it back down. The goal was to basically say fresh air was at top. So always have fresh air go down there.
Hey, Doug, but all you've spoken about in this is the red color 3D print, not the purple. Is that correct?
That's right. Haven't got to that
Okay.
yet. That's the focus knob.
Got it. Okay,
just
good.
These little flat things with the little bumps on the bottom, little
Perfect
reflectors at the bottom. As far as air deflection, I think what I'm going to end up doing is I found these small 5-volt fans, super light. I'm probably going to end up mounting one right on the laser head blowing down. Because I have that's 5 volts, so I hooked it up to a USB cable. So I can just plug it into the laptop and set it next to the laser cutter. And it does a pretty good job at blowing the air. And it's so small that I could mount it right on top of this laser head, I think. So that'll be something I'll do later on.
You're joining the David Collins Club of fan movement, right?
Yep. Well, I think it's a big deal, keeping the lens clear and stuff.
Agreed.
Keeping that laser light going straight down to your work.
Bear with me. Alan, could you let John Anderson in? He's in the waiting room. Thanks. Sorry, Doug.
Oops. No worries. I just dropped my pointer. That's right. I get another one. So I've got pretty fat fingers, and it was really tough getting in there and turning these knobs. I ran across a hack that somebody had made that was a whole fan cooling system and knob thing. problem is it's so damn big and long. First of all, it wouldn't actually fit in here without dragging the ground. It was so big. And then because of this bulk and this fan that was on here, it was going to eat up about 10 millimeters of axis, because I'd have to stop it. So I kind of took that off and put it aside. And I like the knob, though. I like the focus adjustment. So what I did was I took that focus adjustment and I did some shrinking in my 3D printer Prusa Slicer software. You can shrink or scale in X, Y, or Z. And so I got it. It was just a little bit loose. So I scaled it slightly in X and Y, and then it was like twice as long as it needed to be. So I scaled it in Z, like, 50%. And now it's really nice. I can get in there and I can turn this. It's just held with it. Just held on with it, squeezed on with a zip tie.
Turn it for us, Doug. All right. Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's really nice. You can get your fingers on there. I mean, just especially with my deflectors, I'd have to pop these out and get my fingers in.
Yeah.
But even when those weren't there, I hated getting way up underneath there.
Yeah. Hey, excuse me, Doug. Travis, John's not in the waiting room. I think he's in the wrong meeting.
Oh, I'll take care of that. Okay.
Oops. So those were the old hacks, kind of.
Hey, Doug.
Yeah.
Did you think about just running an airline over to it? I know you like to play and.
Yep. So you mean like from a compressor?
Yeah, like the big lasers have.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I've considered that. When I burn in the office here too, when it's just wood. I don't mind a little smoke smell in here.
Oh.
But yeah, I've got a small compressor in the garage for the K40, and I could hook that up. But I mean, I'm thinking that I like the self-contained aspect of this, so I'm going to try that small fan, just that really small fan. Maybe try some sort of mount that'll allow me to move it around. Kind of like having the fan on a light like this, so you can move it.
Yeah.
Have it on a pivot, and see how that works. I've used it, like I said, just hooked up to a USB cable and just set it next to the print. When I'm doing something small, like a tile, the fan's pretty close. Well, and then the cutting area is not that big on this anyways, but.
Hey, Doug, just as a quick aside, that tile,
yeah.
That's kind of remarkable. I know you did a post about it, but.
Oh yeah, it's my tests.
That's really impressive.
So I did 2 tests on 2 different types of paints. So one was a SE. What the heck was that? I forget what that is. This one is a PP. It's paint and primer. That was super enamel or something. I forget what it is. I got 2 cans. But the PP came out a lot darker.
Are they the same settings on both arrays?
Yeah, but there's different. So 30 millimeters per second, 30 millimeters at 80%, 70%, 60, 25 millimeters, 80, 25, 70, 25, 60.
Wow.
So yeah, and it was solid, dither, and then grayscale. And I got to figure out what happened to the grayscale, because I got nothing on the grayscale. It just clipped.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, it just went to a certain point and then stopped.
Yeah, it didn't do any grayscaling at all.
Yeah.
So something, I got to figure that out, because I know this thing should be able to do grayscale.
Sorry to derail you, but that's a $175 laser that's doing that. That's impressive.
Oh yeah. And I've done a couple. I did a my wife's birthday recently, so I did a tile, a coaster with my daughter's picture on it.
Oh,
And
nice.
it comes out really good.
Yeah.
Just, yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's great.
So what else? So let's see, focus. Yeah, so the focus extension, got that. That's right. That's a new hack. I can share that STL file if anybody wants it.
Yeah, please.
And then
Please.
the one that was the thing I didn't, one of the things I did, I don't know if you can tell, but
Doug, I have a question back on that, the focus ring that you made.
yep.
Was your ring extremely hard to turn before you did this, or did you have one that turned fairly easily?
Yes. Because when I first got it, it was really tough to turn.
As mine, yes.
As I did it a few times, and as you know, and when I focus, you got to run it around like a full turn to get it to go fuzzy, and then you got to go all the other way to go fuzzy, to then know where in the middle it's really going to be. So it took a few turns, and now it's still snug, but not super tight like it was when I first got it.
Yeah, mine was super tight, and I turned it, I don't know, 4 or 5 times, and it still seemed tight. So I went to a different approach, but I was just curious. It sounds like most people have really tight lenses.
They do have an O-ring on the lens barrel that I removed, but then it's too loosey-goosey.
Yeah.
So I just didn't know if other people encountered that as well.
And Doug, you're holding that on with a zip tie, right?
Yep. It's just squeezed with a zip tie.
Okay.
Yeah, it works pretty good. I like it.
Yeah, it's great.
Because focus is a big deal on these little things. Oh, and by the way, it is a line. Because one of the I was doing some tests, and I did a test with some lines in the x-axis, and I did some tests of lines in the y direction, and they're different widths.
Yeah. So it is not a point.
Not a point. Yeah. The Ortur people say that the focus is, I think, 50 millimeters. I think it was supposed to be ideal focus like 50 millimeters. I've got this. You can see that this is on the bed here and here, and this is, what did we say this was, like 54?
I thought it was 55.
Well, 55 is what the card is. I found that the credit card was like 54.
Okay.
So it's just easier. I just have credit cards in my pocket, so I could just grab them and use them.
So your impression is that the proper focal length for being in focus is 50?
Yeah, I'm gonna try that and see if it comes to any better point at 50.
Okay.
I don't know if it will or not, but you know, it does pretty good, you know, at 55, or it works pretty good when I put this underneath here. You know, that's pretty snug at that point. It's probably well below 50.
And what power settings do you use to do a preliminary focus?
Oh, yeah, that's the thing. So when you do focus, you put your work surface down like this. If I was doing this, I'd put this down.
Right.
Then I'd put the flat black paper down, and then I'd get my goggles, the shield, the glasses that they gave you.
Right.
Yeah, the super fashionable ones. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're a real pain in the butt when you're already wearing glasses, though, man.
Yeah.
And then in light burn, you know, you set the minimum, you know, you set light burn up for the fire button,
Right.
and mine's at like 0.8%.
Yeah.
I mean, you just want it to just turn on.
Right.
So then it's still tough to see that, the point,
Yes.
but it's way easier than, a bright beam.
Yes.
So
Because of the black paper?
the black paper helped quite a bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. I had cardboard in there before, and I was just amazed at how easier it was to see with black paper. So now I got my little sheet that I keep right there. So the other thing, because I wanted to get this to be able to print on the surface, for one thing, because I wanted to do something like that fish mural
Oh, yeah.
there, because that I just put this right down on the surface, etched, and then just kept moving it around.
I think your point was that in order to do something that large, given the constraints of the Ortur, you had to do an array. And so you wanted to print right on the surface so you could move your laser around. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it has it has a neat effect. It kind of
Okay, cool.
looks like, I don't know. My
Yeah,
daughter
it's
says
poster
it looks
size.
like a window, but yeah. So yeah, so being able to focus on the work surface was, and this wouldn't go down low enough to get close. So what I did was I looked at this and I found out that, you see this nut right here? This nut right here was actually under this. And so this whole surface, this plate right here, this acrylic plate, was raised by the thickness of that nut in the washer.
Oh.
And that raised the x-axis arm right here and the laser. So I took a look at it and I'm going, geez, if I remove, and it turns out you take this off, you remove those nuts and hold all the wheels and screws from falling out, and you put the plate down, then you put the nuts on top, there's still room. There's still room there. It doesn't hit, doesn't rub, and it drops the laser by like
Good
10
hack.
millimeters.
And as a consequence of making that shift, you are able to focus on the surface on which the Ortur is sitting.
Yeah. Yep. Without
Okay.
having to modify the mount itself. Like we
Yeah,
can
cool.
we can raise it up. We just couldn't go down any
Yeah, yeah.
further. So that was that hack. And the next thing was interesting is that in the back is that, which is normally in the front. And
I'm all confused, Doug.
I know, huh?
That's a great idea.
It's pretty cool. So it's symmetrical.
Yeah.
So basically I took off the front and just set it aside, took the back off with the controller. The controller was essentially on the inside, right? If you think about this piece right here was literally just moved from the back to the front, and in the back, the controller is on the inside. It's on this surface.
Yep.
And so the controller would have been out here with the cables on the inside. So luckily it's symmetrical across this
Perfect.
axis right here.
Yep.
So I could just flip the board. And so the only difference is that essentially this connector, this D connector, is rotated 180 degrees.
Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't have
Hey,
to
Doug, what I
diddle with
found
your,
interesting was your
limit
motivation
switches?
for this.
What's that?
Doug, tell us your motivation for having done this. I thought that was interesting.
Well, I can turn it off right here.
You can see all the buttons.
It's right there. Power's
Yep.
right here. Cables. I don't have to reach in the back, and it's just easy to get to.
Weren't the limit switches on the, did you have to swap the limit switch?
So limit switches. So the cool thing about this is the limit switches are all on this carriage. So the limit switches are all on this carriage.
Oh,
right
I
here.
thought it was on the control board. Okay, great. Thanks.
Let's see. And so, yeah, so there, let me see if I can get this to stay there. So there we go. So here's the Y, and there's the X, that little tiny one right up in there. I don't know
Got
if you
it,
can
yeah.
see
Yep.
that.
Okay.
So those are right on there. But yeah, there was one thing that I had to do is I had to go ahead and loosen this. This is the Y limit switch. And I had to move it out because this board was now there.
Okay.
So on this end, I lost a little bit of space because of the board, but there's now nothing on the other side. So, you know, it doesn't hit anything on that side, which I think it would have hit the board.
Do you get the same Y travel, or did you lose a little bit?
I think I lost like maybe 5 millimeters.
Okay, yeah, that's what it
It's just
sounded like. Okay,
a tiny bit. And I think it's,
right.
and I could get that back. The only reason why I have to have this is because this switch right here will go in this space.
Oh, there's nothing to block it.
There's nothing to hit it. So if I just glued a piece to the top of this, the edge,
Yep.
then I wouldn't need this switch right here, this
Got it.
thing there. And then I'd get my space back. But it was quick and easy just to loosen those screws, slide it in, put this all on, slide it back and go, okay.
Hey,
Good enough.
Doug, if I could, I've known Doug for many years, and this is Doug's way of really getting to know the hardware. It's remarkable the kinds of little changes, little enhancements, little hacks that he'll come up with. This is great, Doug.
Yeah. It was pretty easy to do. I mean, it's just, there wasn't any cutting or anything. I mean, it was all pretty much just a bunch of swapping, but holding screws in so that like all these bearings didn't fall out. The other thing that I had to do was I had to get this cable, which was normally going on the other side. This right here was turned around with the cable coming out the other side because the stops were, the controller was over here. So I had to turn this around. And the only thing was I did not want to have to disassemble the whole darn thing. So I came at it from the bottom. I don't know if you can get you guys dizzy. But I had to get to these screws right there. And I could get to 3 of them, but not this one in here because of this. So I drilled a hole so I could see that screw. So I could get to that screw with a screwdriver. That was the hardest part. It was just acrylic, you know.
And there were no consequences really in terms of the operation because all you did was rotate the stepper 180 degrees, right?
Yeah, it operates exactly like it did before.
Right.
There's nothing here. Everything really runs the same.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So
That's great.
That's the hack. The hacks.
Those are great. Hey, Doug, you sent the list to Alan before this. Can we use that when we post this? Can we put your list into the description that we put on our forum system?
I can copy and paste. Yeah, I can. I was gonna say I can just copy and paste it right now into.
Oh, into the chat room. Great idea.
Chat.
Yeah.
Let's see how that looks.
There they are.
There. Give that a shot.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very cool, Doug. Very cool.
All right.
Hey, will you share those STL? I'm especially personally interested in the focus knob.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, maybe you can actually drop them into the chat box as well.
Oh, I can.
If-
Okay. I'll
If you
go
happen to have them,
I'll
yeah.
have to go find it somewhere. I gotta go find
Okay.
it. But yeah, I can
Great.
find that while we're talking about other stuff. I'll dig through it and find it.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So John finally got in. I finally let him in. Actually, what it was I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to the. Come on. Nope, it didn't like that. Well, I was trying to save that. All right, let's see if I can undo Doug here. If I can find it.
Oh, I'm still live.
You're still on, so don't do anything bad.
Yeah.
There you go. And now I got to see if I can find John. John, there you are, John.
Hi.
All right, now you're on.
There he is.
Don't do anything you would want your mom to see.
Okay.
So John's gonna tell us his woes and good stories of everything from unpacking his laser to getting fired up and running.
All right. So I'm gonna flip the camera around so you can see what I'm talking about here. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. All right. Okay. Do you guys see a beer
Bottle of beer. Yeah.
and a and a workbench and a drill press and a little bitty bandsaw? Okay. So, not sure if many of you know me. I'm John Anderson. I've been a member at the wood shop for, I guess, about 1.5 years now, maybe a little bit longer. And, started using the shop, using the machines, and wanted to start getting into CNC and some of the digital tools. And took a class with Travis and kind of caught the bug from there. So let me go from there. And so Travis helped me kind of get through the laser buying process. And the reason I'm digging this out is because this is part of my setup, or at least what that used to be. So I got the laser. It sat in the box for a while because I had to build a station. And let me show you the station here. Can you guys see that?
Nice.
Yep.
Okay. So this is the station, kind of 2 levels. Obviously the laser here. This is like the desk slash idea center, whatever you want to call it. This is,
Hey,
of course,
John?
where I set them. Yeah.
John, could I ask you to pause? And there is a lot of thinking that you went through when you decided, I want to get a laser. You looked at a variety of things, but could you tell us what it was you wanted and then what it was like to get it? That is to say, how did you buy it? How long did it take? What was the buying experience like? That sort of thing. And then even when it showed up, what was it like when you got it?
Sure. So my thought process was that I wanted to do more with digital tools, and I was using the laser at the wood shop, if not once a week, then 2 or 3 times a week. It was to the point where I was pretty much always there using the laser because I've kind of accrued my own tools as far as shop stuff goes, table saw, router station, stuff like that. Crap ton of hand tools, chop saw. I mean, you get the idea. So a lot of this stuff was already covered as far as shop tools, but of course I didn't have my own laser. So the more I started doing projects, like pick guards and bottle openers, and there's a bottle opener there. The more I considered getting my own laser, and I started doing the research. I reached out to Travis and started doing the research, and what I was looking at was, I think it was an 8x12, if I'm not mistaken, like an 8-inch by 12-inch, because the cost was fairly low. And the more I talked to Travis, he's like, you know what, the software is a little sketchy. The lasers themselves are a little sketchy because there's not much information out there for them. A lot of guys on the forums, as well as you folks at the shop, have not had the best experience with them, and they're a little finicky. So he said, if you're willing to kind of step up a little bit more money, a little bit bigger size, you know, I could get into the laser that you saw here, and the lasers that you guys are familiar with and you've done a lot with and have experience with. So so I started looking on eBay, which is what Travis recommended. And he said, you know, the controller that I was used to using is a Ruida, and of course it's one that we're all used to, this one here. I have the most experience with it. I'm familiar with it, and it works really well. So I said, yeah, let me run it by my wife. You know, we had some stimulus money coming in, which you guys are familiar with. And so I talked to my wife about it, and she said, you know what, if you're going to use this thing a lot, if you're going to make projects, and she was, you know, the wheels started turning for what I can make for her, of course. And so she said, yeah, go for it. So she let me use some of that money to get a laser. And the process going through eBay honestly was a little scary, because it's people I've never met before. It's eBay. You know, this is not necessarily a cheap item. I wasn't really sure what I was going to get. You know, what I had to do is go off of ratings, go off of star ratings, go off of feedback, stuff like that. Travis gave me a ton of insight as far as what to look for, like features, of course, the Ruida controller. I'll show you what else I got with the machine. So of course, switchology here, USB inputs, power supply. But I also got, which I haven't used yet, I got the rotary device back here, and this is my air pump. I just bolted to the back of my station. This is actually what I have for my water flow right now. The water pump is submerged in there. I'm not sure if you can see it, but the hoses are coming out of the top there.
Yep.
And they flow, of course, to the back. I went off of Travis's recommendation too, to just freeze a gallon jug of water, and that's my chiller. You know what I mean? I'll take that big old ice block out of the freezer, throw it in my bucket here, and I can burn for a few hours and not have to worry about the temperature of the water because it's staying pretty cold. I actually ordered some weights yesterday. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with McMaster Car. But I got a couple weights. These are 6-inch, like quarter inch thick. So 2 inches wide, 6 inches long, and quarter-inch thick. I ordered them last night and they arrived today, which is amazing. Yeah, their delivery and customer service is pretty quick. So just got these in today, and they feel pretty substantial. They feel like a good solid bar weight that I can use to weigh down the plywood. But kind of getting back to the process, it was I didn't know what to expect. The buyer, or actually the seller, was very good about communication. I emailed them. You know, I was like, hey, you know, can you tell me more about the laser? Can you tell me about shipping and stuff like that? And they were very responsive. They responded within about, I think it was a couple hours. They got back to me, and it was a make offer situation, and so I made an offer, and which they didn't really like. So it was not as good as as apparently they wanted. So I said, hey man, I made an offer. That's my offer. He's like, well, I'm not accepting your offer. So he countered for like $10 less. I'm like, come on, dude, $10. And so I shopped other lasers and this and that. I ended up coming back to this one because it actually was a really good price. And the only thing though is the delivery process. The seller provided free shipping. So I wasn't sure what that entailed because there's also a residential fee, which I didn't know what that was. And there's a lift gate fee. And so in talking to Travis, he said the lift gate fee was an expensive elevator ride, and which makes sense because the lift gate brings it down from the bed of the truck all of 4 feet to the ground so that I can, get it off the truck myself. Well, the shipping company called me and said, hey, your item is supposed to be delivered on Friday. It only took a week, start to finish. Everything took a week. So I bought it, I think it was a Sunday or Monday, and it was here by Friday, which was pretty awesome. So the shipping company called me and said, hey, we're going to deliver they didn't know what it was. They said, we're going to deliver your package on Friday afternoon. And I said, okay, so do I have to pay you extra liftgate fee and residential fee? And they're like, what's that? They were like, well, shipping's included. They're like, we already got paid by the seller. And I'm like, great. So I can save $150. Thank you. So I ended up, the driver was cool enough to just take it off the truck. He used his lift gate and didn't charge me for it, which was awesome. And he put it on a dolly and wheeled it up to the garage and left it in the garage for me. So it was pretty cool. Didn't have to pay the residential service fee, didn't have to pay the lift gate fee.
What's it weigh?
And it worked out pretty well. So
What's it weigh?
the weight shipped was, I think it was 220 pounds.
Okay.
So a lot of that was crate. A lot of it was a wooden crate. I think the laser itself weighs 150, I want to say 140 or 150. But let me go back
John,
to that.
Was there a story about taxes as well? John, was there a story about taxes in that?
I did have to pay tax. I know we talked about ordering it from a different state. And I did look into that, and it said that because I'm the buyer and my residence is in California, then I still have to pay California tax.
Got it. Okay.
Even if I ordered it from a different state.
Got it. Okay.
So that's the bummer of it, is like we can't really get around that, or at least I couldn't, because my address, my home of residence is in California. But okay. Real quick, Travis, do you have anything else for me?
I just had a question. It was there sitting in your garage, and of course, yes, you put it together in 5 minutes, and it worked perfectly, right?
Not exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So more on that. Let me go to it here. So this is, of course, I'm trying to keep the bed as clean as possible. It was full of resin the other day and all kinds of crap from burning. So I ran through the instructions, and mind you, the instructions are what I'm guessing is a Chinese person that knows English fairly well, but there's a lot that's still kind of lost in translation. You know what I mean? So I had my laser cutting and engraving instructions here, and some of the verbiage was not the easiest to understand.
You can read a sentence 5 times thinking that one more time is going to make it clear, and no.
Exactly. And I'm like, what the F does this mean? I'm trying to read it. And of course I nuke a lot of stuff. I don't know if you guys ever hear the Navy term nuke. Like I overthink it, right? And so I'm going through, this is the adjustment process here. This is the optical path adjustment, right? So it goes through like the pulse on the paper. So, and the first time I did it, I had this pulled away from the wall, right? I had this whole thing pulled away from the wall. And so I rigged up my paper through like, you know, mirror number 1 through that hole. And the first time I did it, I scared the shit out of myself because I held this piece of paper in the beam and it hit the pulse button. And I'm like, holy crap, it burst into flames. And I'm not sure why I was thinking that wouldn't happen, but it still kind of startled me. And I'm like, oh man, that's a laser beam. And so it went from there. So I went through these instructions that were honestly pretty hard to follow. And of course, with Travis's guidance, I ran through I threw them all away, but I had a pile of test patches on the bench. I probably tested, I don't know, 60 or 80 times to get the laser path to focus the way it was supposed to be focused. Like, of course, number 1 through the hole, number 2, and then at the head here. And tons of pulses, tons of testing, tons of notes, and finally got it cutting pretty well to the point where I felt comfortable burning stuff. So of course, made a chart here, which stays with it. Made, of course, my laser gauge, which was 59 millimeters. I think who was that? Doug that was saying he had his at 50.
Yeah, 54 on the Ortur.
Okay, 54. So
55.
mine's at 59. So my little makeshift gauge here, I haven't made one out of plastic yet, but my little makeshift gauge works pretty well, and I hang that from the collar here, kind of like we do at the wood shop, and that works pretty well there. Also made a key to the city, which is just basically a little burned tag that, you know, there's my key to access all my panels here, and you get the idea. I just kind of cut a little circular hole for a magnet, for one of those rare earth magnets, and glued it in. But yeah, so the setup process did take a while. It did take a ton of testing, a ton of burnt paper. I stopped scaring myself, so that was good.
But John, after that process, I mean, you ended up learning the laser so much more, right? I mean, it would have been nice if you hadn't had to do that, but if you had to now go ahead and make adjustments, you know so much more.
I really do.
Right?
It was a struggle, but I honestly don't regret it. I don't feel like it was a waste of time. You know, it did help me know the workings of this thing and kind of what to expect. So if I have to adjust anything, sidebar too, I had a friend come over that happened to have one of those lens cleaning, one of those super soft lens cleaning cloths, because my mirrors ended up getting kind of smoked and smudgy. So it did help that he had a lens cleaning cloth, because I did end up taking the mirrors apart and giving them a cleaning.
So one of the things I was going to tell you, John, was lots of people will use like painter's tape and stuff to do those alignments, and you don't want to do that unless you stick a dime on the inside of it, because what it does is it basically just spatters that glue that's on the back of the tape. It just splatters that on your mirrors.
So I'm hearing
Gotcha.
Doug's available to come align the mirrors.
Doug knows a lot about this stuff.
So yeah, so that's the thing. So you learn. So I don't know whether it could have been, in your case, it could have been just dirty from transit and all the oil that they used, this stuff. But if you do an alignment again, you want to be careful as to, you know, what's going to get blasted on those mirrors.
I did, yeah, because I started out with paper, but it got to the point where I started using tape, because I'm like, it was just a lot faster. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
just a lot faster and easier to rip off a chunk of tape. But yeah, in the end, I did have to clean my lenses at the end. So
you can use tape. Just stick a dime on the back so it doesn't go all the way through.
The other thing, Doug, do you have somebody? There's actually a 3D printed fitting that will go over there, and then you cut 1-inch squares of paper and you drop through the fitting.
I use that on my K40.
Oh.
So you just have to get the right. You have to get the right pattern, and then you, like Doug said, you have to fiddle with it till it fits.
So allow me to make a quick point, because now we're hearing the expertise of Alan come forward, the expertise of Doug come forward. We've got Paul on this call, and John was very kind in giving me credit for helping him out. I think I was just the guy who happened to be around. One of the benefits of getting something that this community is familiar with is you can turn to different people. So John's working through an issue right now, and I tried to help, I couldn't solve. So we expanded the universe to include, I think it was you, Alan, and maybe Paul? I can't remember. But the point is that when you get something like this, and it is from China, and it's not plug and play, but it's a great value, and it's, when it's working, a great laser.
Yes.
The ingredient that makes all the difference is people in this community who have prior experience and can help out. And you've already heard from me, from Alan, from Doug. Half the people on this call actually have great laser experience. And so I didn't want the story to be told without getting that ingredient in there. Your RUIDA controller, you're sourcing from China. This particular laser, Alan owns, I own, Sam Takahashi owns. I don't remember who else, but there are a variety of people who've gone through the curve climbing process and are there to help others when they get them. And it's just an important part, you know, being a part of the SIG, being a part of the shop and the association, those things become available to you.
I definitely appreciate it, yes.
Does somebody have a URL to this item on eBay?
So you want to have someone drop it into the chat box, perhaps?
Yeah, John, can you drop the URL from eBay into the chat box so we can put it in the recording?
Sure.
There's the target file.
Can he finish his presentation first?
Well, I'm curious what kind of documentation is available on this thing. Say if you have a bad stepper driver or a bad stepper motor, because what I'm running into is that I could not find exact equivalents on items. So do they change that fast, or is it that kind of like esoteric product out there? I mean, did you get?
Paul, I would tell you to have low expectations. And let me just use an example recently from, I don't remember the guy's name. It's Russ something or other. He runs a channel called Sabia Media or something like that. He has about 200 laser videos. Well, you guys probably know who I'm talking about. He recently came up with a new head for this particular kind of laser. And I bought it. And it turns out that there are like 15 different ways that they mount heads onto the x-axis. And consequently, it won't work for me. And it's remarkable how many variations there are on this theme. Doug can tell you all about the K40s, which is the next sort of step down in these Chinese laser world. And you can buy them from so many sources, put together so many different ways, and you will get a different machine from a different source, but they all kind of look the same. Right. And I don't remember that there really was any description of the stepper motors. John, you're probably the freshest on this. Nothing like that.
Yeah, I don't recall one either. Yeah. I can double check. I know a lot of what I was looking for was the power. The controller was a big thing. The accessories it came with. I wanted to make sure it came with, of course, an air pump, water pump. The rotary system is nice, but wasn't necessary. But I wanted to make sure it had all the switchology too, like the, control switch, laser switch, water pump switch, stuff like that, to make sure that it was, everything was kind of on its own circuit and had its own switch, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but you'll find that you don't use half of those. I leave all mine on. I only use the master power switch.
He's right.
It's a, you know, when I first started, I did that. Gotta have the air on, then you gotta have the water on, then you put the laser power on. No, I just hit the main switch now, and that's the only one. But what I did want to tell you, John, was the first thing that's gonna, and Randy will back me up on this, because he's probably the next newest guy having a laser in this crowd. And he's got a different model. His was like a 65, had a bigger bed. But the first thing that went out on his, I think, was the air pump. And we put we put a honker air pump on his, because we tried to mimic mine and we couldn't find the same model. So we got, it was so many liters per second. So he bought the one that was bigger. And literally, I ended up going and buying that same model, and it's made a huge amount of difference when you're etching. That's when it really blows, because it blows off the etching. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I'm the biggest fan in the world now of a milliamp meter, and it's a hack. You've got to do. All you do is you split the ground wire to the tube. If you've got any, I don't know how electronic-y you are, but it's not that hard.
That's easy enough.
Polarity is the biggest thing there. And then you can watch what the power's doing on your tube and not overdrive your tube.
Okay.
When I built Frank, so I blew mine up and I had to rebuild it. I rebuilt it a lot bigger, so now it's Franken laser. But if I did not have that milliamp meter on there, I would have blown the tube up probably within the first week.
So John, and the reason why is that, like, my K40, it's rated at 40 watts, but it's really not a 40-watt laser tube they put in there. It's like a 35. If you run it at full power, it'll degrade in less than a year.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know, like, if you have a mark, sometimes the tubes are marked and you can see what they're tested at. Usually what happens, like, when the tubes go out, you buy a tube from a good vendor, and what I've seen is that they'll test them like the 40s. They test them at 50 watts. So they will handle 40 watts without degrading the tube. But until you know what you got, you probably want to try to find out what your max power, max current would be for that rating, for that tube. Like, if you got a 60 watt, run it at no more than like 80% of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have it should be marked. There should be a tag on your tube. Now that you've got that all put up against the wall and you can't see the tube, but you can crawl on your desk. I saw it. It's big enough. You built it big enough. Open that thing up and look. There'll be probably a tinfoil like lid on there.
Okay.
You could probably stick your phone in there and just take a picture of it. And
I'm gonna have to use my key to the city.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
But run that thing at. You can set up the LaRue or the. I don't remember if it's the controller or the Lightburn software. Maybe it's the controller through the Lightburn software. For a max power out, and you can crank up 100% on Lightburn, but it will stop at whatever you set that thing at.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a safety feature we want. Everybody want to stand on your desk.
Actually, I had one more question for John, which is, how much did you end up having to spend your laser time making projects for your wife?
She's actually not that demanding, so that's good.
I've talked with several people. Lou at Zima, for instance, is another person who has this same laser. And Lou lost control of that laser within the first hour of it running.
Yeah,
She just loves it. She just uses it all the time. And I think that if that's the bargain you have to strike, that's a worthwhile bargain.
Yes. Okay, so what am I looking for?
Oh, hang on just a second.
On the tube itself, right?
Yeah.
The sticker on the tube, right there.
Right there. Oop.
Take a picture of that.
It doesn't say what the.
Yeah, I don't see it there either.
It may be
Take it down
underneath
to-
that pull down clamp right there.
Yeah, it might be. Don't move
right
it
there?
while we're here.
Yeah, it may be right there underneath that hold down clamp. That may be where your power rating is.
It's usually one of the hand scrawled things on the sticker on the tube. And that's the right place right there. So it
Okay.
probably is below the clamp, and maybe when we're not here, you'd be able to sort of maneuver around and find it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So other people have questions? Marty looks very curious, very curious.
Oh, Travis. So
Yeah.
I had to make my basic laser machine pre-op mechanical checklist
Nice,
Ba-
Jug. That's great. Very
based
good.
off of your little packet from our class. So it's actually pretty
Excellent.
helpful.
Good. Good,
And of
good.
course, I have a clock and a fire extinguisher.
Just like the shop.
I think the fire extinguisher is too far away. You should move it closer. So
I might have to. I'm gonna have to put it in that little hole right there.
there you go.
Right.
To go back to so as far as the ducting goes, we had an exhaust fan on the far side of the garage, and I was telling Travis, I said, hey, I already have a fan that's plumbed, and the switching is there, and the wiring is already there. I just have to move the fan. So that's what I did. I took my ducting and ran it out the back, but then I moved the fan to this bay in the garage. And I don't know if you can see it, but this plate right here used to be a dryer vent that goes off the back of your house. So this is the dryer vent. And then here's your little trap door here for, that actually attaches to that part up there. So yeah, so I took the plate and the 6-inch little chunk that comes off the plate and ripped this stuff off because I didn't need it anymore, and just attached it to the vent that I already had, and just ran some aluminum tape around the outside. Well, I screwed it down first. I screwed it to a piece of 1/4-inch plywood, and then taped all around it. And then you can see there the exhaust goes through and out the top of the garage.
Perfect.
So that was, what's that?
Perfect.
It works, yeah.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I did learn, I also learned about fans. Travis turned me on to the fan because I have the same fan I think the shop has, and I think Travis has. But when it comes to mounting the fan, the ideal location is closest to the exit point. And
Yeah.
the reason for that is if there's any leaks, it draws air in, as opposed to if there's any leaks, putting gases into your garage.
Great point.
Gotcha.
So that's just a thing that it's like a rule of thumb if you can do it.
Okay. It works pretty well. Every once in a while, I'll smell some smoke, but for the most part, it works pretty well. But yeah, Travis sent me a link to, I think the same one. Is it the same one that we use in the shop, or is that something else, Travis?
It's
That
what we
link you
used
sent
to
me?
use in the previous setup. We had this green. It was typically used in greenhouses,
come on.
but
Be careful. Go ahead and say it. Pot growing greenhouses.
Legal
it's
now.
true. It's true. So one last question for you, John. I know I said that before, but just so that people know what you ended up, if you don't mind sharing, just so that people have a sense of what the cost of a setup like yours is, can you share that?
Absolutely. So the initial cost of the laser was about $1,400.
Nice.
Shipping was included. So, like I said, don't pay for the lift fee and the residential delivery crap if you don't absolutely have to, because if shipping is included, then it's going to be at your house anyway. It's going to come to your house anyway. And it's,
basically just try to ding you for an extra 150 bucks that you really don't have to pay for. As far as the ducting goes, I already had the fan, so that was helpful. I did have to buy some ducting, but it really wasn't that much. This piece here came with the laser, this flexible piece here. Of course, I had to buy the dryer vent that I tore apart. That was about 20 bucks. And this piece of ducting here is actually dryer ducting. And I was just able to run it from this exhaust fan out the top of the garage. But I had to buy, of course, some plywood. I sprung for some decent plywood because it is finished on this side. I wanted it to be kind of smooth. So a 4x8 sheet of plywood and 2x4s and casters. So I got some pretty beefy casters because this thing is kind of heavy. I think the casters were like 12 bucks a piece. So you got 48 bucks there. 2x4s, I think I used 8 of them. So I want to say that's maybe 4 bucks a piece. So 32 bucks in 2x4s and a sheet of 1/2-inch birch. It's finished, well, sanded on one side, not finished, but sanded.
But the big ticket was 1,400 bucks with tax,
bucks.
right?
Yeah, 1,400 for the laser plus the goodies. I want to say I'm all in for about 1,800 bucks. Actually, probably less than that.
Is that a 50 watt, John?
It is 50, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Means it's really a 40.
So it's probably a 40.
It's a Chinese lie.
I got a question for the other laser users.
That's nothing new.
Is a flow meter recommended for the?
Oh, you're asking Alan?
After Alan blew up his tube because he forgot to turn on his pump, I put a flow meter on mine, a visual. It's just a little wagon wheel.
Just a wheel.
Yeah.
And it works perfectly fine. I just run the input going into it, and when I turn it on, it spins, and okay, I watch it and it goes. But I was not feeling good one day, and I didn't turn it on. Didn't follow that startup sequence, and ended up blowing my tube up. So, which was the best thing I've done. It
Oh,
hurt.
right, because you're a new tube. Yeah.
It hurt, but I went to a true 60-watt tube, and now I've got more power than I still believe I have more power with my 60 than the shop 100s do.
So I have a piggyback question as far as that goes. Have you guys seen the tubing? It's a liquid tubing that computer guys like super gamers use to run coolant through their hard drives and stuff when they're playing video games super hard. It's like a G quarter or G 1/4 or something like that. Is that effective? Like, is it worth the cost? Because it is kind of pricey. I was looking into flow stuff last night, actually, just for that reason. Just because I want to make sure that once you turn the water pump on, I want to know that it's on. You know what I mean?
Well, there's flow, and then there's active coolant. So the water-cooled chillers for like overclocking CPUs and that kind of stuff, I don't know if those guys would dissipate the BTUs that are coming off of that tube to be truly effective. So you may have to look at a more dedicated active chiller. But again, for a 40 water, I don't know how fast does that ice melt, I guess would be the question.
Yeah, actually, if we could have Alan tell us his story about chillers, because he's gone through the entire spectrum.
Yes, I have. So I started off with I started off with one of those square under the bed plastic boxes with a pump in it, because that's what slid underneath my laser. And then I graduated to the Home Depot bucket But my recommendation to you is if you have to redo your Home Depot bucket, that you put the two hoses coming out the side of the bucket right at the top at the rim. And
Okay.
that way you can take the top off without having to worry about the pump and stuff.
Good point.
So I did that for over a year, and I had half-gallon milk jugs in the freezer. I have a spare refrigerator outside. I kept like 6 of those things out there. And in the summertime, when it was 90 degrees in the garage, I could come out and drop one of those in before supper and then come out after supper, turn the laser on, and I'd run it until 9 o'clock at night. Easy. And the temperature wouldn't be over. All the time, I had a little digital aquarium thermometer, and it was in Fahrenheit, but it ran right about 72 degrees. It would get down to 62 when I first started, but by the end of the night, it'd be back up to 72. If it got about 72, I'd switch out I'd put another hunk of ice in there. But then I decided, oh, cool, look, they've got these CW3000 coolers, and they're only like $125, and the 5000s are like $350.
Oh man.
So I bought the 3000.
There's a reason for that. There's only about 700 YouTube videos on that.
So but the 3000 works fine if your laser is in an air-conditioned space. Being in my garage man cave, that doesn't work. So it will not keep the cooler. It will not keep the water any cooler than the air temperature.
It's
So
just a fan with a radiator.
Yeah, it's just a radiator is all it is.
Yeah.
So I ran that for about 2 days until I finally realized it wasn't going to work. Went back to my Home Depot bucket, called eBay and said, this is not what I wanted. Luckily, I still had the box. They go, okay, ship it back. So they gave me my money back on it.
Wow.
And I went ahead and bought the 5000. I think it was $300 off of eBay at the time. And then, of course, 2 months later, Travis calls me and goes, hey, you still got that 3000? You want to sell it? And I said, no, it's on back. Tough. You have to find your own.
Tell them what the difference, though, is between the 3000 and the 5000, John. Thank Paul. Alan.
Oh, well, the
I can answer
5000
that
is,
too.
the 5000 is actually actually a refrigerating unit.
Yeah.
Refrigeration unit.
Uses refrigerant, right?
Yeah. It has its own little compressor in the back, and it has the radiator too. But it creates quite a bit of heat in my shop. I'll bust Randy's bubble. He's got one too on his. He actually piped his the output of his chiller outside the house to keep the
nice.
temperature in the garage down.
Well, the heat's got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do that this summer. That's my one of my to-do projects on Frankenlaser to pipe that out, because that side of the man cave gets 10 degrees hotter than this side does, and it's just because of that chiller.
So you saw my hacks, right?
Yeah.
For my K40 cooler, I took I took an office water bubbler that had a cooling mechanism in it for cooling making the water cold for the drinks.
Can you say hack?
I took that apart and found out there's like a 2-quart, refrigerated reservoir at the top. So what I did was basically sealed that up, put a pump in there, and pumped the water out of that into some copper tubes that I put in my bucket, and then circulates that water back. So, but it's a K40 running at like 30 watts.
Amazing.
So there's plenty of ingenious ways to cool things.
Yeah, the 5000 is the bomb, though. I mean, it's got temperature setting and everything on there.
Yeah.
With the flow meter.
Right.
I like I said, the two things that I really glad I've done is the flow meter and the amp meter, milliamp.
And the new tube.
Well, the new tube was, yeah, but I'm glad there's two safety things that I've done, I guess,
Got it.
was those two things to try and keep me from blowing it up again.
So
That's why we have flow charts.
Yeah.
It actually
Alan-
it has helped.
But here's the other thing. My laser is not supposed to, and yours is supposed to be the same way. Your laser is not supposed to fire if there is not flow through the tube.
Okay.
There should be a flow switch, right?
Right. So the
I think there is, yeah.
There is. But listen to this.
But yeah,
Magnetic flow switches fail in the on position.
yes.
Oh,
And that's what
Yes.
happened to mine. I don't know how long my flow switch wasn't working because I always turn my pump on. But the one time I didn't turn my pump on, the laser is supposed to completely run, but the tube is never supposed to fire if it doesn't have flow. And so I went to a pressure flow switch. So now mine's a pressure switch instead of a flow sensor. So it senses the positive, the inlet side of the pump or the outlet side of the pump, the pressure side of the pump. How about that?
Yeah. Hey, Alan, just before you wrap up, I was wanting to make sure that people saw in the chat room all the good stuff that's been put there. Not only did Doug put in all of his hacks, but he also gave us the STL file for the focal wheel. Doug also provided the laser targets, a file that talks about the targets for focusing your laser. And then Todd added the link to a version very similar to what John purchased as a laser off of eBay. So all of that is there. And there's one more too. Doug added something for flow meters. So there's a lot of information there, which, you know, after the session ends, you'll probably lose that stuff. And I just want to make sure people saw that it was there so that they could take advantage of it. I've actually gone so far as to download the STL, put it into my slicer, and when I hang up here, I'm going to start printing it. So thank you, Doug.
You bet.
So before we, one last thing before we go, because I want to show everybody that I'm going to see if I can figure out how to share my screen. Share my screen here, because I have these two share screen there. So can you guys see my Lightburn screen?
Not yet. Yep,
There
just
we go.
again now.
Oh yeah.
So come on. Yeah, but it doesn't. Oh, here we go. All right. So the two cool hacks, or the two cool features of 9.13 is how to bend. So here, teach me how to bend words. Okay. So you just go over and you type a bunch of words. You come back, then you click on it. See this blue dot right here?
Yeah.
You can move this blue dot anywhere you want.
Oh,
Oh,
But
that's
when you
nice.
pull it, it bends the words for you.
Wow.
Huh.
That's nice.
So direct.
Yeah, it's like they meant you to do something. Okay, so that's one. That's how to bend the words. That's the first one. So no, you no longer, because used to, remember, we had to go up here to edit and do. Let's see, where was it? No, it was tool.
Fit the path.
Yeah, apply to path. You had to
Yeah.
click your circle, click this.
Apply path to text.
Yeah, never.
so if
came
you
out
don't
right.
have a circle, you still want to do it that way. But if you, because that looks like that will only do circles.
Oh, right.
It won't do like a football. Well, I guess you could do part way. I guess you could do. You just couldn't do S's.
But
or
still,
stuff,
if
but
it was a wave or something, Doug, you're right. You'd still
Yeah.
have to
Right.
apply it to the line.
Right, but
Okay.
But for doing circles, the thing is this does circles real well, where the other one was really hard on circles.
Yeah.
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 Nice.
Okay.
The
Because
words
you had
always
to
came
align
out-
a certain way.
Yeah. So the other one is extend and trim. All right, and it only works with, so if you use your node editing tool, but you got to remember that when you make a circle, it's not, it's a circle and it has no nodes.
Right. Convert to
You have
path.
to convert to path, okay? And now it has nodes. So this one over here I've already got done, all right? And I've drawn 2 lines in here that intersect my circle. Whichever side I want to get rid of that circle, I put my cursor there, or my arrow, and I hit T for trim, and it goes away.
Nice.
Now, it didn't make this a circle with a V in it. So I can get rid of this now.
Oh,
And now I can say, oh, wait, but I want this line to connect right here. So I can put this here, and I hit E for extend, and it gives me a line. And I go over here and click on this one and hit E for extend, and it does this. So it gives you a huge capability that we never had before to split shapes out.
nice.
So let's see. You go over here. I didn't convert this to path. Convert that one to path. What was I going to do? I was going to cut a corner out of it. That's what I was going to do.
Oh, so you're saying the same technique as you used on the circle, but now on the square.
Yeah, on the square over here.
What was the letter again? Trim? T?
T for trim. Oh, I didn't convert it to path.
No, you did.
Yeah, I did. Oh, I didn't turn on the
Yeah, node editing.
node editing. That's why. And then you put your arrow here and you hit T for trim.
Yeah.
It goes away. And then you put your cursor over the end point and it's E for extend. Well, I guess you got to have a shape to extend it to. Let's see if we can extend it down here. Well, anyway, that's something to play with. I hadn't tried a square. That's the first time I tried a square. So don't try something on the demo with it that you haven't tried before. But
Hey,
those
Alan, did you notice that
That's
Todd
cool.
has joined us?
Todd was
Alan?
here in the beginning.
I know, but this is the first time I remember him in something, right?
Oh.
Welcome, Todd.
So Todd's our newest CNC guy, and he also bought a diode laser out of it. He's waiting for Chinese to send it to him.
Great.
So
Yeah, GearBest said that it's still not shipped. So, yeah.
sometime before Christmas you'll get it.
Yeah.
If it was an Ortur, they just showed pictures of like 2 truckloads of lasers going to the shipping distribution.
Oh, good.
So
Good.
people
Yeah,
should be
I
getting
wanted to
some.
ask you a question if I could, Doug. I ordered a 20 watter. Do you have a 15 or a 20?
A 15.
So am I going to need to calculate my own distance points out of that, or is there a best practice document somewhere?
You mean for setting the focus?
Yeah, among other things, yeah. Yeah.
The focus should be the same. I would think it would be the same. I would guess that the 20-watt laser probably looks exactly like the 15.
There's a bigger box on the end of it.
So
Could be.
the other question I had is kind of for all the bigger laser guys, the CO2 lasers. So what assuredness do you have that nobody's going to run off with your money? And you'll forgive me if I seem a little wary of that, but you know, $1,400.
So Todd,
$14
we have an actual story about that, and Lou at Zima had a situation. eBay covers you. If you get it through eBay, they cover you. He was protected. And I mean, the lesson we learned from his experience was, well, as John said, you really look for the trustworthiness based on comments, number of times it's been rated, how long it's been available as a store on eBay, and that sort of thing. But even if things go bad, if you buy it through eBay, they cover it. And we have living proof of that in our community.
I mean, I wouldn't buy it from a shop that basically sold 50-watt lasers and then women's panties.
Wait, that's GearBest.
you just, I mean,
Wish.com.
yeah. So, I mean, you'll find vendors that, you know, have been selling these lasers for a while. And that's probably the better way to go.
And the ones like John got it in a week. He didn't buy it from China.
No, he
bought it
remember
from-
he said that he was
Inventory
able
was in
to
the States.
call up and get them, and they responded within an hour. So my first thought was that either he called them or
No,
emailed
I
them at 11 at
emailed
night.
them. Yeah, I had to email them.
So if it was 11 o'clock at night, you might get a response in 2 hours. But if
Yeah.
it's during the day, you won't get a response until the next day because of. The
And a
time
lot of
difference.
these guys that are selling those on eBay, they go, you know, they buy a boatload of them. And then they
Yeah.
put them in their garage or a warehouse or
Yeah.
something.
Mine
U.S.
came from
inventory.
LA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just basically got it from a distributor that was already in the States.
No, I can't tell you enough, Travis. I appreciate that story because that's really one of my biggest concerns. You know, nobody here is probably in the poorhouse, but on the other hand, I don't want to chunk $3,000 for something and,
Right.
you know, so.
Todd, that's one of the great things. I say it every few meetings. The benefit of this community is that there's experience out there, and we can always find answers by asking people.
All right.
Anything else, Alan?
No, does anybody else have anything? Does anybody have any cool things to show us before we leave?
Well, I have something, it's not that cool, but some people might be interested in it. What I did is I worked with the high school robotics team, and I make little medallions to give away at our events. So this year, what I did is I took the robot's design, which was done in SolidWorks, and then turned it into a wireframe and then print the wireframe. So I don't know if you can see it very well.
Too close.
Too close?
Hang on just a second. Let me spotlight it. There we go.
Put it in front of your face, because your
back up.
face is in focus.
Yeah, back up about
Hold back to your face.
There you go.
There you go.
There you
There you
go.
go.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Now we can't hear you though.
Jim,
He
you're
may-
muted.
Hey,
He looks
Jim,
like he's
we
making a
lost
good
you.
testimonial, though, don't you think?
Yep.
We can't hear you,
You
Jim.
got muted, I guess. There we go.
Okay. So it's really just a wireframe from SolidWorks, which probably Fusion 360 has the same capability, and then just brought the wireframe into Lightburn, and then of course tweaking with all the settings and everything to get this thing right here.
Cool.
That came out perfect.
Yeah, it did. And then for the seniors who got kind of cheated out of who got cheated out of a game this year. This is the wooden, it's made out of 2x4s and plywood. These is the game pieces simulation that we built at the school. And really for the seniors, this is all they had this year. So I made this one for the seniors, which has the replica of what the real game would be with the little reduced size robot in the bottom.
Jim, those wireframes out of the software look fantastic.
Yeah, I was really impressed that it came out so well. And I tried.
Is that on your Ortur?
That's a little Ortur.
Wow.
Yeah. So can be done. And I tried doing a not threshold, grayscale, and
Yeah.
the robot this small just turned into a smudge, like a thumbprint. So that's what made me go to wireframe. Anyway, that's it.
Hey, Alan, I've got one just because it's been sitting here for years. This little thing right here is a little Qi charger. And I ended up just doing tiny little, these are a few years ago. I took the Qi chargers, etched out something. This is a little battery that shows the charging status. Put a piece of plexiglass on top so that everybody could still see it. When you put your wireless charging phone on here, the LED turns from red to blue. And it's just a simple little thing. But what I was impressed by is the fact that this circuit board plus the coil altogether cost me $1.98 from China. And so I was able to make these things for my daughter with, high school, with college logos on it, and my son-in-law, his employer's logo on it. It's just a simple thing to do. And it was very, very inexpensive and yet extremely personal. So I figured since it was sitting here and you asked, Alan, I thought I'd throw it into the mix.
Okay, now we want to know where the vendor is.
The what?
Where we buy it in bulk.
Oh, I will drop that into here. And if not, I'll put it into if Alan ends this quickly here, I'll put it into the forum post where we put the videos afterwards. The answer is AliExpress.
You guys want the link to to where I got my laser, or at least the seller?
Sure. I think they'd appreciate that. Yeah.
So what's funny is I kind of saved $150 by not paying them extra money for shipping. The seller's name is Global Free Shipping. So let me reverse this here. Hang on.
And Todd, that would be a good thing to pay attention to. If somebody's had good success with a particular vendor, trying to find their offer would be a good one.
You guys see that?
So there's the 98.8. How long have they been a seller? Does it say on that particular screen?
No,
I think you have to click through to them. But that's another big factor for me, is I look at how long they've actually had a store and how many ratings they've had.
Yeah, so 98%. There were actually a couple with better ratings. There was one seller with 99%, and but they couldn't guarantee that it would be here by within a week. So I mean, these guys were great. I mean, they didn't wiggle too much with the price, which was kind of, it's whatever. I mean, I realize there's not a whole lot that they're going to wiggle, but contact was great. Shipping, like I said, it was here within a week. Great seller. So
actually, John, could you just go a little closer into those three numbers in the middle of the screen? That's how many positive ratings, how many neutral, and how many negative. That's not only a good number of total. I mean, they can fake it up to a point, but that's a really good ratio there.
Yeah. So there's, this is let me zoom on that too. This item as described, communication, shipping time, shipping charges, like they have a ton of 5-star ratings. And yeah, it was easy. I mean, start to finish, it was a pretty easy process through them.
Cool.
All right, cool.
How do you?
Does anybody else have anything to show? Marty, I
Oh,
heard
hey, I wanted
your voice over there, clearing your throat. You were going to talk.
What? Oh, no.
Go,
I wanted to
Marty.
ask you guys, does anybody know what this is? This wood right here. I'm starting to make pick guards for Les Paul guitars. And this, it's funny, I bought a pile of like exotic hardwood guitar materials from a homeless guy for $10. And this was one of them. I have no idea what this is, but it's beautiful. And I made a pick guard out of it. And this is what I think is rosewood.
Yeah,
And,
that looks like rosewood. The other one looks like koa.
This is koa.
Might be.
It's got a beautiful grain, and I bought a whole pile of it for $10 off this guy. Just had a random box of it. And so I was trying to figure out what it was. But Travis, I went in, basically I traced this with a pen and took a picture of it. And then I went in and did the trace function that we were talking about a couple weeks ago. It was a sketch trace, but what was weird is it made two basically parallel vectors like around the perimeter. And so I chose the cleanest one and deleted the other one. And basically all I did was go in and adjust the nodes like all around the perimeter of this thing. And it made a pretty sweet pick guard. So yeah, thanks to the node adjusting SIG that we had a couple weeks ago.
Yep. Hey, everybody, I really want to apologize. I said that those Qi chargers were $1.98. Turns out they've gone up quite a bit. They're now $2.03. I put the link inside of the chat box.
That definitely ruins it.
Got the first one? Or
Tom.
It definitely ruins it. Okay. Hey,
all
John.
right, everybody. We can sit here and talk all night, but we probably ought to cut this thing off.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks,
in 2
everybody.
weeks.
We'll see everybody in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
See you guys.
Everybody. Thanks.